Hickok 45 here. Welcome to the Hickok 45 Talks channel. You're here on the front porch with me, whether you like it or not. Whether I say anything intelligent or not, well, you could click out. But maybe you're not the type of person who would click out if I sound dumb, because I sound dumb in almost everything I do, probably, right? So anyway, someone may talk about a combination of firearms and like revolver and rifle in 357 mag, pistol and carbine in 9mm. You know, that business of taking advantage of the one chambering and long gun and pistol, handgun, that kind of thing that goes back a long way, right? Into the Wild West. We always think Wild West, but you know, that was probably somebody east of the Mississippi who owned, no loud mufflers, but back in 1873 or 5, whatever, I would guess somebody living in Tennessee or Michigan or Florida had an 1873 Winchester in a Colt single action army. You know, we kind of forget that, don't we? We tend to think those firearms only existed out in the desert, Arizona, New Mexico. But anyway, that's kind of where that comes from, that idea, or it kind of originates, you know, early cartridge guns. If you had an 1873 Winchester chambered in 4440, then it might make sense, a lot of sense, to have a Colt single action army or whatever handgun. The Remington 1875, right, was chambered in 4440 and at some point there, or even was it originally the 1875 Remington? I forget, but now Colt didn't chamber the Colt single action armies in 44 until, here I go again without reviewing my research, was it 1878 or something, you know? So I think a lot of people have this vision of people in 1873 running and buying a Winchester at 4440, and then the same day, you know, buying a Colt single action in that chambering, or the next year even, or 2 years later. You know, that wasn't the thing. So, but the 1873 Winchester and that cartridge was so popular, Colt, you know, finally, hey, maybe we ought to make one in this chambering. So, and see, that's the one they called the New Frontier, right? No, the Frontier 6-shooter. The New Frontier is that abomination with the adjustable sights on it. But anyway, so that makes sense. You're out in the mountains and you got your Winchester, or you got your whatever else, your handgun, they're chambered the same bullet. You can stick that bullet in either firearm, and you ain't going to mix up your bullets. You can have them on your belt, you can have them in a box, you can have them in a pocket if you have a pocket, and you're not going to put the wrong bullets in the wrong gun. So, yep, there's an advantage to that. My take on it, though, because, you know, I like to be a contrarian. No, I don't like to be a contrarian, but I do like to look at different things and ask and kind of question a little bit. Okay, yeah, I get that, but was it that big a deal? Because lots of things, as it comes through history, we get the impression that, oh yeah, that's what everybody wanted to do, or, you know, the 1960s, everybody was a hippie. Everybody in college had long hair and a band around their head, and they were throwing frisbee when they weren't in class, and they were doing drugs and all. Nah, I was in college in the 60s. There were a few hippies where not many. It was kind of an aberration almost, you know. And if you're in Berkeley or California, it's all different. So anyway, we get the impression this is what everybody did. You know, when we read history, just like you read the history 100 years about the history of handguns in the 1990s, 2000s, or even now, whatever, this 30, 40, 50-year period, be really easy to get the impression everybody carried a Glock. just because they dominated so much of the market for a good period of time, right? So, but not really. So anyway, I like to think about that because I know how writers and how I mean, I have some insight, just from being alive so long, how stories and narratives get continued, and to the point where that narrative may be true, somewhat true, but not as not in as a widespread way, as maybe we tend to think. And I think that might be the case, is my point, with combining rifle and handgun cartridges as being, oh my gosh, that's the ultimate, and everybody would do that. My take is, because I try and think what I would do, what I do now, and whatever. An extreme example, for example, would be, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And some people, I got me a 9mm carbine, pistol caliber carbine. I got my 9mm pistol, and that's the way to go. Or I've got a certain caliber handgun. I'm going to look for a carbine or a rifle in that chamber. That just makes sense. It's like the cowboys did. Well, yeah, maybe, but what 9mm or 45 caliber or 40 caliber pistol do you like? What's your favorite that you carry? Is it an FN? Is it a SIG? Is it a Glock? Whatever it is, okay. I'll bet you one of your favorite rifles might be an AR-15, chambered in 5.56. Has that created an incredible inconvenience to you? Having your AR-15 not chambered in 45 ACP or 9mm or 40 or 380 or whatever, your handgun is chambered in. Just to make a point there, it's not essential. Where I think it would be, share what you think about this. You probably have thoughts. I ain't thunk yet, but as I think about it, even just superficially, it seems to me, yeah, if the year is, it'd be in the mid or later 1870s, when there are a lot of handguns around, chambered in 44-40. If you were out in the wilderness, whatever wilderness was left then, you're in the mountains and you're in the desert, and it's just you and your horse and your rifle and your 6-gun, yeah, that would really be attractive. Even if you preferred 45 Colt or 38-40 or whatever, a different chambering in your handgun, or you wanted the power of a 45 Colt. And it's obviously ammo plentiful, the military ground and all that. You really kind of wanted that. But if you're going to be away from civilization for various periods of time, or just maybe the way you operate, it would be easier for you to confuse the ammo or something. 45 Colt and 44-40 look a lot alike. Yeah, that would make sense. That would make sense. Nothing wrong with 44-40 in a handgun. And then you got your rifle and just one ammo. If you got ammo for both of your firearms, So yeah, I think there's an attraction to that. I'm not going to be some weird contrarian say, no, that wasn't a thing. But I think it's a little overblown. I do. If you're, I don't know, the town marshal, or you lived in a town, you weren't out in the mountains all the time, or you weren't out there away from resources and everything. I don't know how. It's always going to be a convenience, but I don't think it'd be that essential. I guarantee you, there were a lot of guys mostly, carrying a 44-40 1873, but carrying in their handgun 45 Colt or some other chambering, just because they liked that in a handgun or they shot it better. You got to remember, a handgun is such a different animal than a rifle, a long gun. The purpose of it, maybe when you're going to use it, how much you're going to use it. And we also have this vision from the westerns, the movies, of thinking, the novels, thinking everybody was in gunfights all the time, and you had to reload and get more ammo. We've seen all the movies, and read all the Louis L'Amours, and we got some more ammo. There's a box of ammo. We got to load that rifle, load that handgun. We have this, I think, idea that was a common thing. No, just like today, you're not in gunfights. You don't hang out in the areas of town where there are gunfights, yeah, there's a lot of shootings today in different places, but you don't hang out there probably. And you're not going to even fire a gun out of necessity probably. You're going to go to the range if you're going to fire it. And so, and if you fire it out of necessity, it's going to be your handgun. It's going to be a few rounds, you know. And at the range, is it really that big a deal to keep your ammo separate? I mean, I do it all the time. I have a handgun that's 45 Colt and one rifle that's maybe a different chambering, and you know, maybe have 5 or 6 guns out there. You know. Now you do have to be careful. I will say, 45 Colt and 4440. Those suckers look alike. You got to read the head stamp almost. I mean, it depends on the bullet. I mean, there are things you could do, load a different bullet or something. I mean, today we could use nickel cases for one or the other, and there's different things. You could paint the head, you know, like some people do. But you just get a box of 45, and you got it roughly the same type bullet, cast bullet, let's say, 4440 and 45 Colt. Because I've come close to putting them in the wrong gun if I don't check. They just look alike. You got a little bit of a tapering, a little smaller on that 4440. But, oh man, you just grab an ammo, yeah, it'd be easy to do. But I just don't think it is an advantage for certain people, certain situations, but by and large, not that essential. You know, for one thing, you know, the 4440 Colt single actions came along, you know, I think it was 77, 78. So that's a long time. And in 1873, 4440 was really popular for decades and decades. But yet the number one chambering in Colt single action armies, which was the most popular handgun, there were other, you know, popular ones, but the most popular, the number one chambering right on through the first generation, all of it was 45 Colt, 2 to 1. Well, actually, I think there were more of them chambered in 45 Colt than all the other chamberings combined. Okay, so that remained a really popular chamber, and I don't know, for various reasons. I just like 45, and all of mine, except one, are in 45 Colt, and I'm not trying to, you know, just promote what I like, you know. So there's just some facts there that you know, are worth keeping in mind, you know. So it's not like everybody was on a mission to have the same chambering in their handgun as they have in their rifle. Depending on your mission and where you are, what you're doing, it might make a lot of sense for some people, or have made a lot of sense. Just like today, not that big a deal. Keep your ammo separate. You use your handgun for different purposes. You know, it just doesn't matter what handgun I'm carrying today, that it matches some rifle I own, you know, that kind of thing. But again, in the Wild West, might have made a little difference. So, does that tell you anything? No, it just tells you I'm kind of weird, and I appreciate y'all coming around and listening to me gab about something. Life is good.